Good evening. Today is Thursday, July 16th, 2026. I'd like to call this meeting of the Auburn City Council to order. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Diego?
Yes.
Councilor Overstreet Wilson?
Yes.
Councilor Cuddy?
Here.
Councilor Clarko?
Here.
Mayor Genatino?
Here, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer or reflection. Thank you. Please be seated. Public announcements.
Thanks, Mayor. We do have a couple of announcements this evening. Just want to start out with a little plug for Summer Rec. We're actually halfway through the summer for Summer Rec. Third week of 6 weeks is complete, and we've been challenged by the weather with the heat, and now this week with the smoke. Unfortunately, we've had to have 4 out of the 9 days inside, but made the best of it, and staff has done great. Our director has done great, and I think the attendance has been really good despite the inside days. So just want to remind everybody that the Summer Rec site is a summer feeding program site for the summer. So those 3 Summer Rec days, there is free lunch available for children under the age of 18. And it's 1 till 3 that the food is available at the Summer Rec sites for the next 3 weeks. I want to remind everybody the Casey Park pool is now open. It will be back open tomorrow on Friday, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. The hours are 1 till 6 on the days that they're open, but check the city's website, auburnny.casey, for the latest schedules and any news about the Casey Park pool. Saturday markets are back in full swing. This Saturday will be music with Jim Van Arsdale and Jeff Newhart. There'll be about 20 vendors on hand. And if the weather cooperates, the Rev Theater's Jack and the Turnip Root Summer Outreach Show will be at 10 a.m. Tennis Under the Lights started this week. This is a program that's funded with the USTA tennis grant that we receive, but every Monday night down at Casey Park, beginning at 7:30, tennis enthusiasts are invited to come on down and play tennis under the lights down at Casey for a few hours each Monday night. Summer movies are well underway. We had a successful movie finally this past week. Next week's movie is Smurfs, sponsored by the ESL Federal Credit Union. That's Monday, July 20th up at Hoops Park. And then Tuesday night is the usual Hoops Park concert. Next week, July 21st, 6 till 8:30 p.m. is Lauren and L.J. Barriger for the music. Next week on Wednesday, July 22nd, down on State Street will be the Central New York Jazz Youth Orchestra. Music will be down there between 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. And then the city, along with the downtown bid, is sponsoring the band Explosion Friday night, the 24th, 7 till 10 at the State Street Event Plaza. And then wanted to remind everybody that the community survey for the annual, or the, not annual, for the once every 15-year comprehensive plan for the city is out. auburnny.gov/comp plan is the quickest way to get to the comp plan page. But we'll be circulating this survey for the next few weeks, trying to get as many people to take this survey. It takes about 10 or 15 minutes of your time. And anybody interested in the future of the planning of the city of Auburn, especially when it comes to redevelopment and economic development of certain areas of the city, any thoughts and ideas that you have, this is the place to put them. On the city's website, as well as we'll be circulating this on social media and through emails. And then just one quick reminder to everybody that the city of Auburn will never email you asking you to transfer money. We have unfortunately this year had a couple of circumstances where people have been emailed by scammers that are out there, to transfer money to accounts that look like they're City of Auburn accounts, look like they're authentic City of Auburn emails, but we will never do that. The City of Auburn will never email you asking you to wire money to us. So that's just a quick reminder to everybody that we won't do that. And that's all I have tonight,
All
Mayor.
right, very good, thank you. Move on to our public to be heard.
At this point in time, we will open the public to be heard portion of the council meeting. Residents are asked to state their name and address for the record. Please keep remarks to 3 minutes or less, and please observe commonly accepted rules of courtesy and decorum.
Thank you. Is there anyone to be heard this evening? Mr. Bishop?
Good evening. My name is Andrew Bishop, and I live at 19 Bradford Street. And although some may roll their eyes like they're still in high school, I can tell you this, Mr. Mayor. I'm here to tell you, you better be filtering your water with a reverse osmosis machine, you and all your constituents. It's gotten worse. Yes, I know we're going to talk about the upgrades in the water drinking plant, but it's not going to produce the results you're hoping for. Carbon filtration does not stop all that E. coli. That is why we have to add the chlorine, because it does bypass the carbon filtration, along with a lot of other things that if your constituents were to spend 30 seconds on the internet would find out. Oh, yeah. I want to remind you about this article. Now, of course, obviously, nobody's going to see it because we've killed all the cameras pointing to the speakers, but I'll read it out loud. Extra inmates prompt lawsuit threats. Officials blame prison for pollution of lake. And it was the county health department. Then they started doing tests upriver and downriver of the sewage treatment plants, and it came back very high in E. coli. But like a lot of these stories, they just kind of disappeared. But the fact remains is the same amount of inmates are there, same amount of water supposedly being pumped from Moravian Groton's water supply. The same amount of water can be treated only, even now, to this day at both Groton and Moravia. They're just still the same size. Well, they've added stuff like the UV, but it's still the same, and we're drinking it. This is why we're getting sued for those people supposedly getting brain cancer. This is why those people are complaining of their gallbladder problems. This is why this is why I'm here. This is why I sent out those FOIL requests today. Oh, I forgot to tell you, that's right. I sent out FOIL requests today. I figured, let's get to the bottom of this. I want to find out how much we've spent each year in the past 2 fiscal years on the water testing. And I want you to, and you're going to name all those different tests, right? Then we're going to go look, and we're going to run
30
it.
seconds.
We're going to run it cross-reference. We're going to run it all over the social media. What's the one thing that can point conclusively 100% to the culprits following the Wasco Lake, and in what ratios? And that's stable isotope analysis. We're going to find out soon, Mr. Mayor. Willingly or kicking and screaming. God bless you, Mr. Mayor, for taking your time out to help us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you,
and
Mr.
thank you,
Bishop.
the rest of the city council
Have a good
members
evening.
and members of the public here.
Is there anyone else wishing to be heard this evening? Mr. Chip?
I'm Christine Dechick, and I live at 9 Penn Avenue, Auburn, New York. And I just want to discuss with you a little bit about the open pit fires that you're allowing, those little fire pots supposedly. Oh,
There you go.
okay, sorry. The fire boxes or whatever you're supposed to be doing fires in, people are not doing them just in that. They're using those old barrels that we used to be able to burn our garbage in back when I was a kid. I have that instance right across from my house. They were burning yesterday, I don't know what they were burning. It smelled terrible between the smoke that we're getting from the fires from Canada and their smoke. They burned for a consistent time of about 4.5 hours, something. They put it between their shed and the neighbor's fencing, the barrel. You could see the smoke all coming out, and the wife of the couple was bringing like sticks and all kinds of garbage to the gentleman to put in that little box. Anyway, I really have a problem with the smoke and having a difficult time today because of the smoke in the air. I've already had to use inhalers 3 times. Next is going to be I'm going to have to use a nebulizer because I can't breathe. And there's nothing you all can do about the smoke coming in from the fires, but you can do something about the fire you're allowing to be burned every day. The people burn these fires from 6 a.m. to 6 a.m. the next day, continuous. It doesn't make any difference whether it's day, night, evening, or whatever. Anyways, I really think that, you need to reconsider about the fire situation being allowed in the city. Like I said, back when I was 6 years old, they stopped burning in the city. And they told my mother and friends of ours, you can't burn anymore because it's not good for people's lungs. But yet the city enacted back a few years ago, okay, we can do it because we've got the whiners and the moaners and groaners. Oh, geez, we want the ambiance. Well, tell me, where's there an ambiance at 6 in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon? There's no ambiance of a fire. And the only thing I worry about is people being pyros, that they want to see a fire at that time of the day. Okay, if you couldn't do anything more than just change the pattern of how you're letting them do fires, if you could enact a law, a regulation, or whatever for the fires.
30 seconds, Mrs. DeChick.
Okay, they have to use like the propane type of fire so that you have the ambiance in the evening if you want a fire, but you don't have the smoke that's involving people like myself, just a heart patient. I have asthma from COVID, and I have a lot of friends that are heart patients and asthma patients, and it's just not good for us, and it's definitely not good for anybody.
Thank you, Mrs. DeChick.
Have a good day. Thank you
You
very
too.
much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to be heard this evening? Yes, sir.
I am Nick Lepic, 147 Pulsifer Drive. Sorry. I was here last week to discuss paper street and damage to properties and trespassing and misuse of my property due to a paper street. I'm here to continue that story and to give more evidence and to make 2 more points. The first one is that you'll see a title in your hands that is actually the precedent that a paper street further down the road on Pulsifer has previously been sold by the city of Auburn to another individual. This is by no means challenging that you guys need to sell paper streets, but just evidence that it has been done and that, I would obviously always love to buy it if that's an option. Second, and more importantly, I would say that I'm here because in this past week, the amount and variation of things that have been occurring due to this city maybe not approved launch, paper street right away, has been actually getting pretty interesting. I'd like to discuss a couple of those things and also at the end tell you that, I must get right to it, I'm asking permission to install a removable bollard in the ramp per my cost, per my labor, that I think will resolve 90% of the issues. Obviously the city can access whatever they need to access, maintain, etc. They keep ownership and fee, whatever it is of this right away. And I think it's a quick and easy solution, right? I'm an engineer by trade and I'm designed to come up with solving problems. On the other point of what's been occurring in this past week, and mind you, this is the past 7 days, I've had countless people with what I've talked about before, using the turnaround, coming backwards, using the dock to launch. I had someone leave a boat overnight. I had someone leave their truck and trailer, not on my property this time, but in my grass, which is even better, during the time that they were abusing my property and went out on the lake, came back, and then used my property again to pull their vehicle out of the water, or pull their jet ski out of the water. I will admit I've had a new one. I had someone come and, let's say, relieve themselves on part of my property from walking down the street, walk right down the city ramp, and then hid behind another boat I had on my property. And again, as an engineer, when you see increases in both frequency and severity of risk management, that indicates that something needs to be done before something more severe happens. And I am sure you guys have a lot on your plate, and I'm hoping somewhere down the line of
30
a
seconds,
meeting
Mr. Lippin.
for you guys to talk about trying how you'd help me out. This is just me coming here saying this is a solution that I think can quickly resolve most of the problems pretty quickly. I'm here to play ball and try to work things out. And like I said, I know you can't speak during this, but that's just what I'm here to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to be heard this evening? All right, we'll close the public to be heard. We'll move on to the approval of the meeting minutes from June 11th, 2026. Do we have a sponsor? Councilor Overstreet Wilson, second by Councilor Cuddy. Any questions, discussion, or changes? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilor Diego?
Yes.
Councilor Overstreet Wilson?
Yes.
Councilor Cuddy?
Yes.
Councilor Clarko?
Aye.
Mayor Genatino?
Aye. Approval of the meeting minutes from June 18th, 2026. Do we have a sponsor? Councilor Overstreet Wilson, second by Councilor Cuddy. Any questions, discussion, or changes? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Councilor Diego?
Yes.
Councilor Overstreet Wilson?
Yes.
Councilor Cuddy?
Yes.
Councilor Clarko?
Present.
Mayor Genatino?
Aye. City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. We have several bid opportunities on the city's website. First, the request for proposals for the geothermal HVAC replacement project due on July 30th. Request for proposals for employee health benefits consulting services due on July 30th. And 2026-2027 sledge hauling services due on August 6th. Also wanted to make you aware that the city received a letter this week from New York State Homes and Community Renewal informing us that the city has met the requirements necessary to maintain status as a pro-housing community for 2026. The city will continue to be able to access New York State discretionary funding programs available exclusively to pro-housing communities. I wanted to say thank you to planning and code enforcement staff for preparing and submitting the building permit and zoning information necessary to maintain the certification. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Haynes? Reports from members of council? Councilor Diego?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I met with Mary Beth on the 14th there. We went through all that paperwork that she sent out to us about 2 weeks ago. It's nice to staying on top, seeing how the budget's going to close out for the year and get a better feel on it. Something I'm going to be requesting to do every month from here on out for the budget, so we stay ahead of it. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, Councilor Diego. Anyone else? I just want to mention Saturday afternoon, the, I think, 17th annual Vietnam Veterans Memorial Ride passed through Auburn. Just want to acknowledge the group of citizens that showed up here at City Hall to acknowledge the veterans and the organizers and participants for carrying on the tradition, and certainly the Vietnam veterans for their service. All right. Bond ordinance number 3 of 2026, authorizing the issuance of $13.03 million in serial bonds for improvements to the city water system. This is the first reading.
Oh, actually, it's the vote tonight. Is it the vote or the first reading? Oh, sorry, it's first reading. I've been working on programming too many agendas. I don't know what day it is. Bond ordinance number 3 for first reading. I believe this will be back next week for the vote, right? So authorizing the issuance of $13,030,000 serial bonds to finance the cost of improvements to the city water system, be it ordained by the council of the city of Auburn, Cute County, New York, as follows. Section 1, City of Auburn, Cute County, New York is hereby authorized to undertake the acquisition, construction, or reconstruction of or addition to the city's water supply or distribution system, including but not limited to upgrades and rehabilitation of the distribution system reservoir, associated transmission main and lower pump station, whether or not including buildings, land or rights in land, original furnishings, equipment, machinery, or apparatus, or the replacement of such equipment, machinery, or apparatus at an estimated maximum cost of $13,030,000, and to issue an aggregate $13,030,000 in serial bonds pursuant to the provisions of the local finance law to finance the estimated cost of the aforesaid specific objects or purpose. It is hereby determined that the maximum estimated cost of the specific objects or purpose is $13,030,000. Said amount is hereby appropriated therefore, and the plan for the financing thereof shall consist of the issuance of $13,030,000 in serial bonds. It is hereby determined that the period of probable usefulness of the aforesaid specific objects or purpose is 40 years, pursuant to subdivision 1 of section 11A of the local finance law. Pursuant to section 107D9 of the local finance law, current funds are not required to be provided prior to the issuance of the bonds or any bond anticipation notes issued in anticipation of the issuance of the bonds. And that's enough for now. This is submitted tonight for the first reading. And it'll be back on next week with a secret resolution for council's consideration.
Appointment Resolution Number 80 of 2026, authorizing an amended employment contract with the city manager. Do we have a sponsor? Councilor Cuddy, second by Councilor Clerko.
Appointment Resolution 80. Whereas Jennifer Haynes was appointed city manager by appointment resolution 118 of 2024, and said employment contract was then amended by appointment resolution 35 of 2025. And whereas the city council and Ms. Haynes are desirous of again amending city manager's employment contract authorized by appointment resolution 35 of 2025, and said amended employment contract is attached to this resolution, now therefore be it resolved that with this appointment resolution number 80 of 2026, the city council approves an amended employment contract between the city of Auburn and Jennifer L. Haynes, which will take effect immediately, and the mayor is authorized to sign any and all documents finalizing the amended employment contract with the city manager.
Very good, thank you. Council, with your permission, before I open it up for question and discussion, I do have a summary that I'd like to read that's related to what's on the agenda tonight that we're voting on. Is that okay with everybody? So the main idea of this is ensure that city manager's contract tracks is the same as the senior management personnel policy. And what's going to be covered is as follows. It's an increase of 2% for wages during the 2026-2027 fiscal year. The 2% was already a provision in the contract, so that's not being added, as approved in October 2024 and amended in March 2025. The city manager's original salary of $150,000 was $15,000 less than the ending salary for the previous city manager, which reflected his experience in the position. I know we've said it before, but I think it's important to reiterate that Ms. Haynes did not take her 2% increase this year, recognizing the difficult budget situation that we were going to be facing. In terms of health insurance, the city manager's contract points to the senior management policy and will abide by the following changes to the senior management policy, which is also coming up. Remove the force to the PPO plan. Remove the PPO incentive, which was $1,000 annually. Include language that allows for health insurance plans to be added. Right now we have a copay plan, recognizing the changes in health insurance nationwide. We feel it's important to have the ability to add additional plans, including high deductible plans. This language would allow that to happen. And an increase in premium contributions by equal percentages over a 3-year time frame for health insurance, 1.7%, 1.7%, and 1.6%, to reach 25% contributions in the 3rd year. The current premium contribution is at 20%. This tracks with the contract that we voted on and signed with ambulance several years back at 25% for premiums. And our goal is to move everybody along to that. The additional change is adding a retirement section to the contract, which allows for the same benefits as provided in the senior management personnel policy related to payout of accruals and use of sick bank toward health insurance premiums, which is included in every collective bargaining agreement and the senior management policy. Ms. Haynes is a little different in her position in that she worked for the city of Auburn her entire career. Typically, city managers are hired from outside, and that hasn't been a factor. So that's why that's being adjusted. And with that, I want to open it up for questions and discussion of the council. Councilor Diego?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I was going to touch on what you were just saying about the city manager. One of the things I was looking at, and I don't think it needs to be in the contract for the exact reason that Ms. Haynes is obviously already vested. So this is probably something that was in here for somebody that may come in for a few years and leave. They're not gonna, get a retirement. Just gonna read real quick, section 7A. City has the absolute right to terminate Haynes' employment with the city at any time upon providing Haynes with written notice of such termination, and goes on and on. And it says that we'll have to pay 12 months aggregate salary. I don't think that needs to be included in there, and the reason being is if it's twofold for me. One, if you terminate somebody, you shouldn't be rewarding them, and I'm not speaking of the city manager, I'm speaking in general. I don't think you should pay somebody a year's salary for not doing what they were supposed to do to the point where we had to terminate them. Two, I think it's more for somebody that doesn't have the time in that Mrs. Haynes has, and if, God forbid we fired her today, she's still getting her pension. She's already vested. She's got the time and age and everything else in. So that it doesn't go with her particular position because she's already in a different position. If it was somebody we hired from outside, I wouldn't agree to it regardless. I'm not gonna reward somebody for not doing what they're supposed to do to the point where we have to terminate them, and then we're gonna pay them a year's salary on top of it and 6 months of benefits. But in the city manager's position now, it doesn't even have any reflection on her at all because, like I said, not that we would or anything like that, but if we fired her today, she's still getting her full pension anyway, so why would we pay a full year's pay on top of that? It also opens up the fact that, and I'm speaking, like I said, hypothetically, if the city manager decided next year, you got 2 years left on the contract per se, and you decided that I'm just not gonna do anything going into the last year, whether you like it or not, and we decide to terminate her, now we're gonna pay her a whole year's pay anyways. You're double dipping on the exact same thing, and she still would get her pension, or he or whoever's in that position. No, in personal opinion, no need to have that in the contract whatsoever. If you would wanna look at it, if somebody came in down the road that wasn't from here, that might be here a few years, I'm never gonna go for it regardless because of the principle behind it, but I've seen it in bigger CEOs contracts, stuff like that. I believe it's in the school superintendent's contract right now. They were talking about the payout if they had got rid of her early before her contract, which obviously they just extended out, but there's no need to have section 7 in there at this point because it doesn't affect Ms. Haynes either way.
Any other question or discussion on that topic or any other?
Yeah, I think it as it is fine. I think that this, what we're agreed upon is pretty much a standard for any executive and any organization. The contract is there to protect both the city and the executive. I think that our city manager serves us very well. I do think that regardless of if she is going to retire or if there is indeed some instance where there's termination, I think it's fine the way it is. I don't see it. I'm actually shocked that has been brought up, but I like it the way it is. I like the contract the way it is. Worried that if the council all of a sudden changes and becomes hostile towards, if we're going to think of hypotheticals, becomes hostile towards the manager. This protects the manager from politics. So I'm going to keep it the way it is. That's my thought.
Anybody else before I come back?
Councilor Diego's point about these golden parachutes, I get it, and it makes sense to me, especially when we see some of these CEOs getting bailed out and getting large sums of money. My only concern would be, because I know Ms. Haynes' situation is different, is there anything in the contract that would guarantee she gets her retirement? Because I know sometimes being fired could mean that you're not going to get your retirement, and that would be a very, very, very big concern for me.
Counselor Yeager?
Yeah, and I'll let Corporation Counsel speak. I'm going to address Counselor Cuddy first. What part of it is it protecting the city if we have to pay somebody $150,000, $160,000 because we terminated them for not doing what they were supposed to do? How does that protect the city when she's still going to get her pension anyways? You're playing politics yourself, Terry, right now. This has nothing to do with City Manager Haynes. This is speaking if somebody else was in this position. She's getting paid regardless. So that's the part. Where are you protecting the city if you're going to pay somebody an extra $160,000 that's going to get her full pension anyways?
City can get sued for wrongful termination. There's, my thought is that this is standard operating procedure.
Yeah, but that's the problem, Terry. Everything isn't
well,
always.
no, I'm just saying, look at any contract with any executive. This is how it does protect the professional, the collegial relationship between the chief executive and the board. So all I'm saying is that I do not think that this is appropriate for. I don't think it's appropriate. I'm not gonna amend this as, at least that's my opinion.
Right, and absolutely, but when it comes down to it, you're putting personal relationships ahead of decisions made for the whole city of Auburn. Like I said, it has nothing to do with Councilor or City Manager Haynes. That's exactly what you're doing, because you're saying there's no reason that we shouldn't pay somebody if we get rid of them. If we get rid of somebody in a regular job, if you get fired from Wegmans today, are they paying you a year's salary? Because it's standard operating procedure, it doesn't make it right. We could go back and forth about this all day. You guys try to turn this around like I have an issue with Mrs. Haynes. If I did, I'd tell her face to face, and she's very well aware of that. But the point being is there's no reason, if she's vested, and Mr. Garland will speak on it, I believe, because me and him already spoke about it, she's getting her pension regardless. If we fired her today or not, I'm not paying another $150,000, $160,000 like I'm protecting the city to keep a relationship with the city manager. She does what she does, she gets paid. That's what people get paid for. You don't do what you're supposed to do. It comes to that point where we would have to actually terminate somebody. I'm not paying you because you weren't doing what you were supposed to do. Maybe Mr. Garland can shed light on being vested and still being paid after the fact.
Before Mr. Garland speaks, can I say something first? So my understanding of executive contracts, when that language is put in, it is to protect the entity that has hired the executive from such things as further litigation. So I've also seen in executive contracts, haven't had one or two myself, that in the event I was terminated, this payout would take off the table basically my choice to sue. Now, knowing that we're a litigious country, anybody could sue regardless of what is in the contract, and even after you sign in it. That is my understanding of what executive contracts, why executive contracts add that. But I'm going to also say, to your point, Councilor Diego, how that looks, and challenging the status quo is not a bad thing. I think that these contracts have served organizations such as cities well. So I do not have a problem specifically with this language here now being in that contract. I do think that maybe in the future, when we are looking at, after Ms. Haynes retires, whomever is sitting on this council, and if Corporation Council if this representation of Corporation Council was still here, maybe a look at new language to come into a contract for the next executive behind her. Please.
Yeah, the point that I was making was, and speaking exactly what you said, we're going to pay somebody so they don't sue us. Are we going to terminate them if they're doing what they're supposed to do? That's the point I'm making. And going back to what you were saying, I understand there's no sense in leaving it in a contract that somebody's going to get paid anyways. That's the point I'm trying to wrap my head around. If Mrs. Haynes had 3 years on the job, it'd probably be a different discussion because she's not vested. Like I said, Mr. Garland can speak specifically on it, about getting paid this and that. Mrs. Haynes is in a completely different category than other city managers that have been here. People come from out of town, they're here for a couple years, they're not here 25, 30, 35 years, they're not vested, they're not gonna get a retirement, et cetera. You know what I mean? That's the point. There'd be no sense in adding this back in, you know, after the fact. We're speaking about the exact presence right now and the situation we're in right now. And like I said, we can spend this any way we want, and people can try to act like it's to cause divide like they love to do here. It has nothing to do with, it's nothing personal with Mrs. Haynes, but that's the way that some people in council like to try to spin things, this and that. Bottom line is there's no reason to pay somebody. You're not gonna fire her if she's doing what she's supposed to do. So if she's not, and you are gonna fire her, you're not gonna pay her $155,000, $160,000 so they don't sue us. We're gonna have, Nate would obviously say, listen, this termination isn't gonna go well for us in court. She's got a strong case, or whoever's in that position. That's what the corporation council's for, to advise us on that. We're not just gonna fire somebody and then take the chance of getting sued on the backside, but we'll pay you so you don't sue us. That's my thought on it.
Thank you, Council. The pension issue is separate and apart from what we're talking about now. It is anyone that has vested in the pension, it's a property right, it is theirs and can't be taken away. And so that's really, while it's real world, has real world implications for human beings, right, on a human level, it is not germane to this particular conversation, frankly. It exists in and of itself. Right? Well, I think a little historical context is perhaps helpful in understanding this, that in 1914, the state legislature passed a law called the Optional City Government Law, which allowed for chartered cities in the state of New York to choose what form of government they thought was best to govern their particular municipality. So that's why Syracuse has a elected mayor who is the executive, and then a common council who is a legislative branch. That's the option that they chose.
Mr. Garland, can I stop you for 1 second? Can you pull the mic up?
Yeah,
I'm getting messages that people can't hear you.
Okay. I won't go back and repeat any of that at the risk of boring everybody. The city of Auburn chose what was referred to as option C, and that is the option where the council is the legislative branch, and the executive, rather than being an elected person, is the city manager, an appointed person. So while Ms. Haynes is an employee of the city of Auburn and has a contract that governs her employment with the city of Auburn that the council is about to decide on, she also is the executive of the city of Auburn per the optional city government law and the second-class city law that followed about a decade later that basically enshrined those types of governments throughout the state. So things like this additional payout, I guess we'll call it, I think probably came into being to protect the city, the municipal corporation that is the city of Auburn, from one branch of government reaching in and affecting another branch of government, or at least it placed a cost on that. Meaning, in my opinion, that that payout is there to make the legislative branch think twice if they decide to make a pretty strong statement and reach over into the other branch of government, the executive branch of government. So that's, in my opinion, understanding everything that Councilor Diego is bringing up here, and the fiscal, watchdog aspect of it, I think is good. But there is also the governmental branch interaction piece of it, which I think the payout is protects the interest of the city of Auburn in that regard, in a relation between the branches of government. So that's kind of where that's my 2 cents as to where perhaps that's hopefully that's helpful in thinking about this for council.
Counselor Diego?
So I'll just wrap it up with one question, Nate. If something happened and next week we decided that for some reason we were going to fire the city manager, is she still getting her pension?
I assume so. I mean, I don't know
That's exactly, I appreciate, that's exactly my point. If it was somebody that, like Mr. Selby when he was here, somebody that wasn't here for 30-plus years that has something to lose on the backside, I'd understand 200%. This is just a specific case for one person that you're already past that. You're gonna get paid regardless if you get fired, you retire, or whatever you do. I just don't see the reason to pay another $160,000 to somebody that's gonna get a full pension anyways.
I mean, again, though, her pension is her own. It's not
Correct.
anyone else's business,
Right.
right? And does not, in the city of Auburn, other than what the city of Auburn paid into her pension contribution back when that happened, has no interest, in Ms. Haynes' pension at all.
Right, yeah, but somebody doesn't have that opportunity, doesn't have the opportunity to get paid, whether they're here or not, whether they get fired or terminated, is different than somebody that does. That's the only point I'm making, Nate, is we're not talking about somebody that's gonna walk out. The guy that we hire, Jenny decides to retire 2 years from now, we hire somebody and we fire him a year later, he's probably gonna want that in his contract in case he gets fired, in case something happens. He's gonna want something to hold him over. The school superintendent had a huge payout in hers, hence they went ahead, and everybody knows that story already. They were gonna try to remove her from her position, so the week before the election, they turned around and they extended her contract out before the majority changed. I understand 100%. I'm just saying that this is a completely different case, and we're speaking about one person that it doesn't apply to.
Are you all set, Counselor?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Thank you.
Anybody else? So I do want to say a couple things, and I don't want to speak for Counselor Cuddy, but I don't think he was accusing you of playing politics. I think what he was saying, and part of our reasoning for including this provision in Ms. Haynes' contract and in the two contracts for Jeff Dygert, is that there are councils who have played politics. I think that's what you were saying. And there are examples where councils changed, and you can go dig through the files on the third floor if you want to, where they tried to remove employees and hired lawyers to see if they could remove employees just because they didn't like that person. And I think that's what we're trying to protect. The council could change. There's going to be an election next year, and Ms. Haynes' contract carries over. And I understand what you're saying about the pension, but I'm just saying from my point of view. I'm just sharing my point of view with you.
Right. And you just made my exact point, Mayor. It's almost like you're ramming it down our throat in case the majority changes next year. And maybe I misunderstood what you just said. That's the way I'm taking what you're saying.
I'm not ramming anything down anybody's throat, Councilor Diego. I'm just explaining myself like I allowed you to.
Yeah, okay, but you don't have to point your finger at me while we're at it.
Well, I'm trying to speak to and share my thoughts.
I understand, but every time when I bring something up, I don't think that's appropriate. This is politics. I've dealt with this for 7 months here, so you guys aren't pulling the wool over my eyes like I don't know what's going on. And I'm not speaking to you specifically. I'm speaking when I try to speak, and every time if it's not what's on your agenda, I'm not speaking to you, I'm speaking in general, people take offense to it and they come out with some weird thing about this, like whether it's the department heads or whatever it is. We supported them, we support the department heads. The following week, well, we didn't listen to them last year like we were supposed to. That's playing politics. That's putting politics over people is what it is, Mayor. Sorry for interrupting you.
That's okay. So do you want to put a motion on the floor?
Yeah, I do. I could, please.
Okay. What is your motion?
I'd like to put a motion to remove on page 5, section 7, the payout for termination, please.
Is there a second? The motion fell. There's no second for the motion.
I appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Is there anything else? Please call the roll.
Counselor Diego?
No.
Counselor Overstreet Wilson?
Yes.
Counselor Cuddy?
Yes.
Counselor Calarco?
Aye.
Mayor Genetina?
Aye.
Carried.
Council Resolution Number 81 of 2026, adopting a senior management personnel policy. Do we have a sponsor? Counselor Calarco, second by Counselor Overstreet Wilson.
Council Resolution 81, Whereas on July 20th, 2023, Auburn City Council passed Resolution 79 of 2023, which approved senior management personnel policy in order to provide fair and competitive benefits to senior management employees who are not otherwise represented by collective bargaining agreements. And whereas an updated policy, which is attached here to and incorporated herein, includes revisions relating to health insurance, wages, and related verbiage. And where now therefore be it resolved, the Auburn City Council does hereby affirm and adopt the senior management personnel policy, which is attached here to and made a part of this resolution. Be it further resolved, the mayor or approved designee of the city of Auburn is hereby authorized to execute the senior management personnel policy on behalf of the city of Auburn. And be it further resolved, the senior management personnel policy shall be effective as of July 1st, 2026.
Thank you. Ms. Haynes, do you have anything you want to add on the senior management policy?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. First, I just want to express appreciation to this team, department heads and management personnel in the middle tier and our support staff who do an excellent job running our city operations. The mayor outlined the main points that are being changed in the senior management policy, so I won't read those again, but again, they're the same items that were just approved in the city manager's contract.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I thought you were.
All set.
Okay. Any questions or discussion from the council? Councilor Diego?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things on the senior management policy. It's not so much the policy, it's the process behind it. I'm just going to read a couple of things that I jotted down. This is something that I would have considered first. A couple of the questions, I'm not asking anybody to answer, I'm just going to put it on the record. Before we decided to get into this policy, did anybody check with other cities, same size as us, on what the management pay is for staff in there? Did we have any of the other cities compare their raises to what we're proposing for our department heads? What's the salaries for the individual titles compared to other similar titles in the area? Can the city afford to sustain these raises over the next X amount of years? What's the 3 to 5 year projection impact on the budget? Did we look back in the past several years where we were given raises based on the CPI, which was monstrous raises a few years ago, I believe, when we spoke one day about it? You had people getting anywhere from a 9 to 13% raise in 1 year because the CPI was so high. They also had steps in there. Is it warranted to adjust the wages up again at this point? Those are the questions that I think should be asked before any policies put in place. That way there the council can justify what they're voting on. It shows we did our due diligence, checking with everybody else. Speaking directly on the policy, if I keep going. This policy isn't a pressing issue right now. It doesn't have to be done yesterday, today. That's the first thing. More importantly for me is, before management is given raises, I think all the rank and file contracts in the city should be done first. You don't take the highest paid employees in the city of Auburn and then pay them before the contractuals that are still being litigated are taken care of. They're making good money as they should for their positions, but you set the example like Mrs. Haynes did, and she bypassed her raise this year. She turned her $1,000 PPO incentive in. That's what leaders do. They lead from the top, they lead from the front. I'd rather have the other contracts done first. City council, mayor, unless anybody can correct me on this, we're the only people in this entire city that took a pay cut this year. I don't think there was anybody else, was there? Nobody else took a pay cut. City council, mayor took a 30.6% pay cut this year. We're gonna take a pay cut to give raises to somebody else. That it doesn't hold water. Once again, we eliminated 32 positions. 10 people were still working on June 30th. 16 days later, we're going to give contractual raises out. I'm not going for it. I can't. We raised the taxes 8%. Water sewer went up 2%. Parking, fees, everything. But we're going to give out raises again. We say we don't have any money. We're in a tough position. We're probably going to be in the same position next year from what we said. But we're going to give out contractual raises. It's difficult because you just laid people off. You eliminated positions that we didn't have money because we had to try saving money, but we're going to give raises out, whether it's the same amount of money or not. It's still the principle. If anybody here can explain how we budgeted zero in the line item budget this year for contractual raises, but we're giving raises, I'll stop talking right now, but that's the fact, and everybody here knows it because we spoke on it. We budgeted zero for raises for contracts this year, and now we're trying to give out contractual raises. It is what it is, but it doesn't make sense. This is something that should have been taken care of during the budget. You don't wait until you pass a budget, you raise the taxes, kick the can down the road, and then you decide that we're going to give raises 2 weeks after we laid people off. It's just not a good thing. It's not a good look for the city. And furthermore, once again, the financial position we're in, I don't think that we're in the position to give financial raises to anybody at this point. Hence the city manager bypassing her raise. Everybody deserves to get paid. When sound financial decisions are made, there's money for everybody. There's been money for many years for everybody around here. It's been very easy when you have the money. When you're in a very difficult financial position that we've been told over and over again, this isn't fixing itself in 1 year. I think it's more you can't eliminate people and get rid of them and tell people that we're actually working in real time 15 days ago. You don't have a job anymore and then give raises to other people. It's just not going to work for me. So that's my thought on the whole thing. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you.
Just a couple things to address a couple things that you said. Related to timing, the way that this policy works right now is that if there was not an adjustment to the policy, the raises would have been at the 2.65% CPI. So the timing's important. If you wanted to make a change to the 2%, we would need to make that adjustment. As far as the financial impact, yes, there are 2% raises in here, but PPO incentives are being given up. Depending on the employee, it's $500 for a single plan or $1,000 for a family plan. In addition, the premium increases would be going up by 1.7%. So although there's raises, there's offsets on the other side of things. So I just wanted to raise that point.
So then with the offset with the insurance and the stipends, we didn't make any ground anyways because we're basically almost level again, so we didn't make any leeway towards fixing the budget is what I'm taking from it. We're not gaining money. We may not be putting out more, but we also have other litigation going on with multiple unions. We're going to be doing another one here in a few minutes. It's just difficult for me we're trying to right the ship and we're just spending the money that we're saying we're going to save from doing this or that.
Right, and I understand your point. Also, what we're trying to do is balance on the employee side, making sure that they are hopefully at least level and not going backwards also in their compensation while we're trying to keep the city budget in a good spot as well. So this would hopefully be around a wash. Again, as in the background memo, it depends on each employee's decision on their health insurance as they make changes. But again, everybody would be paying more on that.
And being that there's minimal people that it affects as far as on the management part, we got 15, 16 people that'll be affecting. Going back to the budget part of it, if we had just tightened up the line item budget a little tighter, then we're not even talking about this. We could have said, hey, this is what we're projecting for raises. We've known for several months where we were going with this. Just another way to look at it. You know, and I would have preferred to have the money already allocated there, or if we had to change something beforehand so the money was there, so we're not just putting it back in there. It's just a tough look. Thank you.
Thank you. I definitely want to schedule a budget debrief, which we've talked about. We should do that next month and talk about changes in the process and
I appreciate
how we're
it.
approaching.
Councilor Cuddy?
I think the walk away from, you know, these three resolutions that deal with contracts or senior management policy, what we're trying to do is move forward and try to kind of level things out across the whole, how do I say, workforce. I see consistency between all three of those, either policy or contracts, the 2% moving towards 25%, or actually one is already at 25%. These are things that we're all trying to, at the same time, respecting our workforce, cutting back. As the city manager said, if we didn't do anything, the senior management policy would be at 2.6%, and the health insurance would still not have we wouldn't get the contribution that we want to get towards, so that we can get to 25%. So it's a step in the right direction. I get what my colleague, Councilor Diego, is saying, but as we move forward with any kind of contract, it is something that the majority of this council will decide. But I'm confident that this is a step in the right direction. I'm glad that we're doing this, and it allows us to, the leadership, show the kinds of sacrifices. And like you said, nobody sacrificed more than this body right here.
100%.
And I totally agree with you there. But at the same time, we did this for the people, but I also want to make sure that we are putting forth what we're comfortable with the city manager, senior management, and the ambulance employees, that is consistent, and we're hopeful that we can get something consistent throughout the whole workforce. That is why I'm supporting this.
Councilor Diego?
So it's fair to say, Councilor Cuddy, that, like you had just mentioned, we basically want everybody at give or take 2% and 25% on the insurance, so everything's equitable.
That is something that is, would be a dream.
But it's the goal we're working towards.
That's something that zero would be good, right? So, but again, I want to be realistic about everything.
I just have one thing to say. Ms. Haynes, thank you for pointing out that we will be having our monthly meetings for budget review, because we can anticipate that any of our saving that the state came through to help us with, and we do want to thank Senator May for that. So having those monthly meetings so that we can preemptively talk about things, so that not a good look, we can have those discussions prior to saying, this is, if we need to put this in a budget, but we're trying to move along a goal, what is this going to look like? Because oftentimes what we're saying is what we're saying, but what people see is what they see. So I do appreciate that those meetings will happen, will be scheduled and happen.
All set, Councilor? All set, Councilor?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
You all set? Yeah, so I do want to, you are correct about CPI. The senior management policy used to be set at CPI. There was a year where CPI was extremely high during COVID. So we did adjust that and put a cap in it. It caps at, I believe, 3%.
Correct.
Yep. And then the fiscal impact, yes, we should all be concerned about that. I agree with you as well. Reading the background memo prepared, it says the fiscal impact of this agreement should be a net positive to the general fund due to changes in health insurance provisions. The precise impact is unknown, as it will be influenced by individual decisions of personnel covered by the policy. And that's part of the reason for, hopefully adding additional policies that will save not only the employees' money, but the city's money as well. So I just wanted to point that out. If there's no other discussion, please call the roll.
Councilor Diego?
No.
Councilor Overstreet Wilson?
Yes.
Councilor Cuddy?
Yes.
Councilor Clarko?
Aye.
Mayor Genesino?
Aye.
Carried.
Agreement Resolution Number 82 of 2026, approving a collective bargaining agreement between the City of Auburn and the Professional Emergency Medical Technicians of Auburn City Ambulance, Local 5379, IAFF, AFL-CIO. Do we have a sponsor? Counselor Cuddy, second by Counselor Overstreet Wilson.
Agreement Resolution 82, whereas the City of Auburn and Professional Emergency Medical Technicians of Auburn City Ambulance, Local 5379, IAFF, AFL-CIO, have reached a collective bargaining agreement retroactive to July 1st, 2026, continuing through June 30th, 2029, which sets forth all the terms, conditions, and obligations of the parties and is attached hereto and incorporated herein. And now therefore be it resolved that the Auburn City Council has reviewed the terms of the 2026 through 2029 collective bargaining agreement between the city and the ambulance union and does hereby approve that agreement, which is attached hereto and incorporated herein. And be it further resolved that the mayor, city manager, corporation council, controller, Auburn City Ambulance Director of Operations, and fire chief are hereby authorized to sign the agreement.
Thank you. Ms. Haynes?
Thank you, Mayor. Also, just want to express appreciation to the PEMTACA negotiating team. It was a very respectful process. Appreciate the points that they brought up throughout the negotiations. Always had good communication with them. As in any negotiation, it's give and take, and this was where we landed. The fiscal impact for the 2% increase across all their members is about a little over $40,000. Again, they are already at 25% for their insurance contributions. There's main things that you try to get at in any contract, because all the contracts are different. One of the main things we were looking at in this contract was changing some of the language around their sick time and sick leave. We accomplished that together, and the goal of that is to save on some overtime costs.
Any questions or discussion from the council? Thank you, Ms. Haynes. Questions or discussion from the council? Counselor Diego?
Yeah, it's basically the same thing I touched on the other contracts. The only thing that I would have liked to see on this one, and once again, it goes back to financial. Those guys are very, very busy down there, been down there multiple times. The pay isn't as bountiful as it should be for them, but on the same token, I would have preferred to push the contract back. Even if you want to give them 6% like you did, even if you went 0.24, 0.33, 0.42, whatever it was, we're still trying to get our feet underneath us financially here, and it's just another way. Once again, that's just a thought that I would have did. I would have still gave them the same amount of money that you're giving them, but I would have structured the contract a little different so we can get in a better financial position before we're handing out contractual raises. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor. Any other questions? Please call the roll.
Counselor Diego?
No.
Counselor Overstreet Wilson?
Yes.
Counselor Cuddy?
Yes.
Counselor Clarko?
Aye.
Mayor Genatino?
Aye.
Carried.
Council Resolution Number 83 of 2026, authorizing an amendment to the purchase, offer, and sale contracts for 17 to 19 Derby Avenue, 19 to 21 Venice Street, 41 Lansing Street, and 197 State Street. Do we have a sponsor? Councilor Overstreet Wilson, second by Councilor Clarko.
Council Resolution 83, whereas the City of Auburn previously adopted land sale resolutions approving purchase, offer, and sale contracts with Housing Visions Consultants Incorporated for the sale of properties commonly known as 17 to 19 Derby Avenue, 19 to 21 Venice Street, 41 Lansing Street, and 197 State Street, each a property and collectively known as the properties. And whereas, based on current information, it is anticipated by the purchaser that the New York State Homes and Community Renewal will issue an RFP at the end of this month with responses due in September and award announcements expected by April 2027. And whereas the purchaser intends to target closing by March 2028 and to commence construction immediately thereafter, estimated an approximate 18-month construction period with projected substantial completion in September of 2029. And whereas the parties desire to incorporate a contractual buffer and therefore propose a formal completion deadline of December 31st, 2029, and whereas the purchaser has indicated that completion in this time frame is intended to support its application with HCR, which is due July 28th, and whereas each contract presently requires the buyer to obtain permits within 30 days after closing and to complete renovations on or before December 31st, 2027, and the deed to include a reversionary clause providing for a reversion if those conditions were not satisfied. And whereas the city and the buyer have agreed to extend the time for performance of the renovation obligations for the properties to align with the buyer's projected financing and construction schedule and to refine contractual terms. And whereas the city council wishes to authorize amendments to each contract and related deed language to reflect the revised permitting and completion schedule, the buyer's timeline, and the city's protections. Now therefore be it resolved by the council of the city of Auburn as follows. Amendment authorized. The council approves amendments to each purchase, offer, and sale contract for the properties to modify the timeframes and related conditions as set forth in this resolution. The mayor is authorized to execute and amend the amendment on behalf of the city, and the city clerk is authorized to attest the mayor's signature. 2, revise contract permit and completion deadlines. The permit deadline, the buyer shall obtain any and all permits necessary to commence renovation of each property within 90 days from the date of closing. Closing target, the parties acknowledge the purchaser's stated intention to target closing by March 2028 in accordance with the purchaser's financing timetable. The city will cooperate to schedule closings as mutually feasible, consistent with the contracts and city procedures. C, completion deadline. The buyer shall complete all renovations and or construction at each property on or before December 31st, 2029. The parties further acknowledge the purchaser's estimate of an 18-month construction period and projected substantial completion in September 2029. The December 31st, 2029 date is adopted here as contractual buffer. D, reversion clause. The parties agree to remove the reversion clause from each contract. 3, other contract terms except as expressly amended by the amendment authorized herein. All other terms and conditions of the contracts and prior land sale resolutions shall remain in full force and effect. 4, execution and implementation. The mayor is authorized to execute the amendments and any other documents necessary or convenient to effectuate the foregoing. And the effective date, this resolution will take effect immediately.
Ms. Haynes, do you want to give some background on this?
Sure. Housing Visions has been working on this project for probably around 3 years. This project is a collection of properties. One of them is 197 State Street, the former Polish home that the city had taken for taxes several years ago, and then the other 3 properties are scattered sites not far from that property. In addition, Housing Visions owns properties on Fort Street and Westlake Avenue that they would be also reinvesting in. They had done a project in the early 2000s over in that area. So they have diligently tried to obtain financing for these projects. Their applications have not been successful yet, so this is the next round that they're trying to get financing for this project. The properties will be a collection of rentals that they will maintain, some of which will be permanent supportive housing on the 197 State Street property. Cayuga County was able to obtain a $1 million Restore New York grant several years ago also to support this project. So they are, as they can, gathering the financing. We had done these land sales again several years ago and just need to refresh them so that they can go forward with the funding applications.
Were there any other purchase offers offered on any of these properties before Housing Visions that you're aware of?
No, at that time, per our land sale policy, we had taken purchase offers directly from Housing Visions. The land sale policy allows us to work with our housing partners separate from listing a property. At that point, we send letters to the adjoining neighbors. That's required as part of it, and there were no other offers on those properties.
All right, very good. Questions, discussion from the council? Councilor Bago?
So, do they actually own the properties, and they're just trying to get financing to fix them up?
No, the city still owns the properties, but we had approved land sales on all of them, so they have accepted purchase offers from us, but those have expired now, and we had deadlines in there that were pointing to former funding that they were trying to get, and they were not successful in those funding applications. So the city still owns them, but for these funding applications, they have to show site control, meaning an accepted purchase offer, in order to submit again.
Okay, so that's the reason I think me and the mayor spoke about this the other day. That's why we're still maintaining the properties and cutting the grass, because we own them.
Correct.
Would there be, I noticed some of them are, you know, a couple areas I think, like I said, you're probably not going to get any purchase offers in on, but is there, do we even remotely put it back on the market, like 197 State Street being the building that it is? I know that they have plans for it. Is that something that is still available if somebody else comes in and buys it, since it's been multiple years?
I mean, right now, I guess I would defer to Nate on that, but as far as I understand it, it still would be tied up with Housing Visions.
That's correct. That's what essentially what we're voting on today. We're voting on today is whether or not you desire to keep this arrangement in place, which basically takes these properties off of the market for a period of time.
On that particular property, Housing Visions has gone through the site plan process with the planning board and has obtained that approval.
Did they end up getting the approval for the not having enough parking spots for what they wanted to put on there? I seen that a little while back. I know that was a holdup.
They must have, I apologize for not knowing all the details, but they must have been able to work through that because they did get the approval.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Counselor Diego?
Yes.
Counselor Overstreet Wilson?
Yes.
Counselor Cuddy?
Yes.
Counselor Clarko?
Aye.
Mayor Genatino?
Aye.
Carried.
Next up, we have our annual Wasco Lake Watershed Management Council update presentation by Dr. Adam Effler, Executive Director, Wasco Lake Watershed Management Council. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council, City staff, and City officials. We're honored to present with you this evening, as we do annually and have been for many years. This evening, we will provide an update for the Wasco Lake Watershed Management Council, and we will feature an update on the watershed rules and regulations status, baseline funding commitments, watershed inspection programming and projects, and clean water plan implementation. My name is Adam Effler. I'm the Executive Director of the Wasco Lake Watershed Management Council. Here with me this evening is my colleague Jesse Lloyd, Lead Watershed Inspector for the Inspection Division of the Council. Briefly, just to review the council framework, we're a 501c3 nonprofit local development corporation. Our overarching goal is that of protecting and restoring lake water quality, acknowledging the potential for lake perturbations from watershed activities and associated non-point source pollution, that is land use-based pollution. And Wasco Lake is very prone to that form of pollution, being of the Finger Lakes, the lake with the largest watershed to lake ratio. Our watershed protection approach targets prevention, which is considered a bottom-up approach, through nutrient reduction. That's the primary focus to manage primary production. For example, the growth of cyanobacteria. Nutrient reduction is the only proven approach or methodology for reducing lake eutrophication in large lakes like Wasco Lake. The first overarching strategy that we leverage is the implementation of watershed rules and regulations. New York State Public Health Law, sections 1100 through 1107, empower the Department of Health to protect public water supplies by establishing regulations, conducting inspections, and ordering improvements to prevent contamination. Section 104.1 are the current City of Auburn and Town of Owasco watershed rules and regulations that were approved in 1984. These regulations are currently implemented for watershed protection, and a local initiative to update the watershed rules and regulations began in 2017. This slide reviews a timeline of the Owasco Lake Watershed Rules and Regulations Update Project from an environmental trigger in 2016, regulatory request that was made in December of 2020, collaboration phase around 2022, state interpretation in 2023, legal action that began in January of 2024, rulemaking that was halted in July 22nd, 2024, a second lawsuit on November 22nd of 2024, court rulings in 2025, a court order in 2025, and then the current status. The localities began the process of updating the Owasco Lake watershed rules and regulations after harmful algal bloom toxins were found in the drinking water supply. In December 2020, following a community consensus process set out in the New York State Department of Health's Environmental Health Manual, the town of Owasco and the city of Auburn formally requested that the Department of Health update the watershed rules and regulations to strengthen measures to reduce nutrient pollution. Nearly 2 years later, a work group was formed in response to the submission of proposed revisions to the rules and regulations. The Watershed Rules and Regulations Work Group was a state-local partnership consisting of representatives from 5 New York State agencies, as well as members of a technical local work group representing the Owasco Lake watershed, including members from the Owasco Lake Watershed Management Council, the town of Owasco, City of Auburn, and Cayuga County. During the state consensus process, the New York State Department of Health indicated that it does not have the authority from the legislature to create agricultural nutrient management regulations for the Owasco Lake watershed. Specifically, the department indicated that when the voluntary agricultural environmental management program was established, nutrient management on farms became the sole responsibility of the New York State Department of Agriculture and Markets. Recognizing the Department of Health's apparent error with interpreting New York State public health law, the City of Auburn, Town of Owasco, and Owasco Watershed Lake Association filed a lawsuit against the Department of Health in January of 2024. The lawsuit, an Article 78 petition, sought to establish that the Department of Health for New York State has the authority to regulate nutrient management practices under updated Owasco Lake Watershed Rules and Regulations. And Article 78 challenges the actions of administrative agencies and other government bodies. The lawsuit contended that the laws cited do not firmly establish that the Department of Ag and Markets' role concerning nutrient management supersedes the Department of Health's authority to promulgate regulations for the protection of public health. Subsequent to the initial filing on January 22nd of 2024, the Department of Health Bureau of Water Supply Protection notified the City of Auburn and Town of Owasco that the department did not intend to move forward with any amendments to the watershed rules and regulations. According to their letter, following internal evaluation of the existing regulations, the department determined that amendments are not necessary to ensure potable water quality for the foreseeable future. The City of Auburn, the Town of Owasco, and Aula filed a second lawsuit on November 22nd, 2024, responding to the Department of Health's decision that new rules and regulations are not necessary to protect Owasco Lake drinking water, wherein the agency failed to provide data or information to support its decision to terminate the rulemaking process. Following the Department of Health's request for dismissal of the first Article 78 complaint brought by the Owasco Lake drinking water purveyors in Aula, the court ruled in favor of the plaintiffs. That is, the Department of Health's determination it lacked legal authority to promulgate watershed rules and regulations to control agricultural nutrient management is an error of law and was made arbitrarily and capriciously. Subsequently, the court ruled in favor of the water purveyors regarding the second case, challenging the Department of Health's July 2024 denial of their rulemaking request concerning updating Owasco Lake watershed rules and regulations. In response to New York State's abandonment of years-long project to protect Owasco Lake, Judge Carrie Savana ordered the Department of Health to, quote, work collaboratively with the petitioners to draft updated regulations that address nutrient pollution caused by ag practices. Judge Savona framed the case through the lens of New York's constitutional environmental rights, explaining years of scientific studies indicate clearly that Owasco Lake is in crisis due to harmful algal blooms and that a plan needs to be put into place to remedy this situation. Without such a plan, the constitutional right to clean water for those residents whose drinking water is sourced from Owasco Lake will be violated. Under court order, the Department of Health is required to move forward with the process to update Owasco Lake watershed rules and regulations. The Department of Health has appealed the court's rulings. Okay, at this point, I'm going to shift in our presentation this evening to a brief review of committed 2026 baseline revenue for the Owasco Lake Watershed Management Council. The council requests all municipalities within the watershed commit to Management Council services. Just this last year, we have achieved 100% financial buy-in from all directing municipalities, as well as a couple of municipalities that have yet to join. For this slide, I'd like to review water purveyors' commitments. That is the commitments from both the City of Auburn and the Town of Owasco. Both water purveyors are mandated to protect Owasco Lake drinking water quality for consumers. This mandate is reflected within the three-party agreement made during the creation of the Owasco Lake Watershed Management Council in 2011. That agreement includes buy-in from Cayuga County. Both water purveyors also support the council's need to enhance ongoing and future watershed protection and restoration measures. The relative rate cost per volume of water drawn and sold from the lake as a funding commitment to the council is calculated. Those calculations are right there in the box. And we do this every year to create sort of a healthy competition between the purveyors regarding their commitments to our efforts. The water volumes that are used for this calculation are from 2025 because those are known water volumes. And we are using contributions for 2026 for our budget. The 2026 Town of Owasco, Fleming, and Niles contribution in sum is $43,750. The reason that's a summation is Owasco purveys through both the towns of Fleming and Niles, and both towns also commit to our funding. The calculation is shown, and that is the total sum commitment per 1,000 gallons, and so that rate being 0.3229 per 1,000 gallons. For 2026, the City of Auburn Senate contribution is calculated in sum. Similarly, the City of Auburn purveys to Senate and among other communities and municipalities, yet Senate is a board member and also contributes to the council's budget on an annual basis. And also that calculation is shown for the commitment relative to the volume. Relative to the total water sold in 2025, an annual City of Auburn commitment of $352,903 would meet the Owasco Fleming Niles commitment to watershed protection in 2026. What's budgeted for the City of Auburn for 2026 to 2027 is a 0% increase from 2025, which is $250,000, is the same as the status from last year. Okay, at this point in the presentation, we are going to shift into a review of highlighted features for our Watershed Inspection and Protection Division with Jesse Lloyd, Lead Watershed Inspector. Yeah.
How's it going? Good evening. My name's Jesse Lloyd. I'm the Lead Watershed Inspector. Usually get a big applause there, but we'll roll with it. So I'll take this brief opportunity tonight to tell you a little bit about myself, about my job, show you some slides of some sites that I worked on. The Owasco Lake Watershed Inspection and Protection Division, our mission statement is to make regular thorough inspections of Owasco Lake, its water courses, and its watershed, to identify compliance with the rules and regulations set forth for the Owasco Lake watershed, and provide educational outreach within the watershed community that supports environmental awareness and stewardship. So I was going to run through a couple sites that I've done some work on. So on this site, it was a large graded property upgrading of a DEC recognized wetland. He actually opened up close to 2 acres of land, which would require a SWIP from the DEC. Didn't have it. I got with the property owner, said, "Hey, we got to get some sediment erosion controls in place." He agreed. He improperly installed some silt fence, which consequently resulted in a water quality violation. After this, I spoke with the DEC. We came down. We both had a conversation with the guys, to let him know that, hey, we got to really beef these up because if this happens again, it's going to escalate. So then the property owner did his due diligence. He backed up his silt fencing with sediment logs. He got his seed and mulch in, prevented any future sediment discharges to the wetlands. That's photos of the finished project. This is one of our repeat customers. This is along a Class CT stream. The farmer had ripped out a bunch of trees along the stream. And under our current watershed rules and regulations, I did not observe any sediment discharges to this, so this did not follow under our rules and regulations, but I knew it was in violation of DEC rules and regulations. So I have a pretty good relationship with them. I let them know. The Ecology and Biology Department and the Water Quality Division representatives came down. We spoke with the property owner. He quickly got in, got this stabilized before there was any further degradation to the bank. And hopefully learned a lesson for the future.
Jesse, can I ask a question on,
Yes.
on that specific instance?
Yeah.
If our watershed rules and regulations were adopted by the state of New York, would it have been a violation of our watershed rules and regulations?
Yeah, yes, I would.
That's the right answer, thank you.
So this, well, I like this site. This is one of our local contractors out in Moravia. He does a lot of work in the area. I've been working with him since they started working on this site. We started getting into the winter. And I told him, I said, hey, we might need to beef up the sediment erosion controls here going into winter when we have some snow melt. He kind of, and then of course we had a snow melt. We had sediment discharge to the ditch. I called him up. I said, hey, we got to do something about this or else we're going to have to, write this up. He said, all right, don't do that. Let me take care of it. Give me a day. And so he did. And, this is a great learning experience for me. What he ended up doing was put in a couple of settling ponds down at the bottom of the site. He put in the correct stone for the driveway. He graded the whole site so all the runoff water ran into these settling ponds. So that all the runoff coming off the site then was pretty much clean as it left the site. It was just good to see what some of our talented contractors in the area can do once they're motivated. That's a photo of the finished site. So I worked as a geologist for 12 years, and some of those years I worked in emergency response. So I have a lot of experience with these kind of sites. The odd thing was with this one, I got a call from the local fire department, volunteer fire department. I got to the site as fast as I could, and nobody was there except for the farmers, which I thought was really odd. I could see that the ditch had been dammed up a bit and some pads had been put in there, but it definitely didn't seem like correct procedures had been followed. I've worked with the DEC spill response team, so I'm usually if we're in the watershed, I'm kind of the point person for them. So I was speaking with them, and they told me they weren't going to be there for 45 minutes, and that the environmental cleanup company wasn't going to be there for an hour and a half. So I ditched this up. I called the volunteer fire department, got some more boom in, got it buttoned up as good as we could. Went down the road, it got cleaned up. But anyways, I spoke with the county Department of Health about the issue, and they said, this doesn't seem like proper procedures were followed from the 911 call. So this ended up sparking a debate between Department of Health and 911. So now, if there's anything like this happens again, the correct agencies will be called in. We have agencies that were better suited to handle this, that were not called in for this. And so if it does happen again, when it happens again, the correct procedures will be followed. So the watershed rules and regulations were made official in 1984. Those rules and regulations refer to a map of protected water courses. That's that map on the left. Our best guess is that this map was made before 1980. And there's no real digital version of it. There's just PDFs of this, scans of this thing. So in many of the rules and regulations, they reference distances from the water courses. And there's no landmarks, and with this map, it makes it nearly impossible to get any kind of accurate measurements. And we ran into problems with that, trying to violate sites, saying, hey, how many feet was this from the water course? But it's really hard to say, well, where's the water course exactly on this map? So we worked with the Central New York Regional Planning Board, Bruce Keplinger, digitize the map, make it modern. They have it in GIS. We're going to do a lot of cool stuff with this map in the future. We're hoping that it's going to be official by the end of the month. This took longer than we would have liked. This whole process took a really long time, but I'm pretty sure we're getting to the end here. But that will be made available for everybody once it's finalized. Okay, so this was an orphan site in Locke. It was orphan for a variety of reasons I don't want to get into here. So when you saw this, we knew it was an orphan site. We assumed that the DEC was just going to come in and clean this up. They came in, they took characterization samples, and the material inside the drums came back as an oil similar to used cooking oil, which the DEC does not deem hazardous. And since it was not hazardous, the DEC would not clean it up. Even though it's not hazardous, a couple thousand gallons. This site is located about 120 feet away from the Owasco Inlet. So a couple thousand gallons of cooking oil spilling into the inlet would just be a disaster for the ecology. And this is just a total stain on the town. I've shown this photo before. So what were we going to do? We wanted to get this cleaned up. Everybody wanted this gone. I contacted Aula. We worked together. They ended up being really integral in getting permissions to get on this site and putting things together. They came up with the funding. They got a lot of donations from local companies here. That was huge for funding this. I got quotes from a few different environmental cleanup companies. Momentum Environmental came in way under. And they came in, they did a great job, and their final invoice was almost 20% less than their quote. So that usually never happens, and they even provided extra services. So I think they kind of were helping us out. They knew where the funding was coming from, donations and stuff. So I think that they, they were sympathetic to our cause and just trying to help out. But they did a great job. I wrote an article for The Citizen. We got the cover of Lake Life. It's good to get the word out there. Just get people think about environmental stewardship and know that we're out there if they know that any other sites like this exist and they're having trouble getting it taken care of. I've seen, I have a copy of our 2025 annual report there. I put a lot of good pictures in that this year. There's a lot of good stats and facts. I deliver these to all the municipalities in the watershed and our partnering agencies. There's a digital version of this on our website. And with that, I'm going to give it back to Adam. Thanks for giving me your time.
Thank you, Jesse. Okay, so I want to shift back. You'll recall this from earlier in the presentation that the nutrient reduction piece is so important. It's a primary focus to manage lake eutrophication, primary production, and the growth of cyanobacteria. That is the cyanobacteria that we understand to be the manifestation is harmful algal blooms. The other broad approach beyond just regulatory implementation is clean water planning and the implementation of recommended projects and programs. You'll see the figure there to the right is the Lake Friendly Living Program. It's a signage program that is also embeds a pledge program within our website and really gearing people towards recommended best practices in terms of their land use activities. Okay, so with regards to planning for phosphorus reduction specifically, the 9-element watershed plan, which is a form of New York State Clean Water Plan that we were essentially given and used, that leveraged the Soil and Water Assessment Tool, which is a hydrologic model. It analyzed 5 subwatersheds. For their lake impacts and recommendations were provided. Okay, this figure shows the estimated total phosphorus load by land use, and based on the model that was used for the Clean Water Plan, agricultural land contributes proportionally more nutrients and suspended sediments per acre than any other land use in the watershed. The model estimated that approximately 90% of the phosphorus loads to Owasco Lake originate from the agricultural sector. So for the findings of the SWAT model and recommendations, the model recommended that a 30% reduction in phosphorus loading would result from 4 best management practices: the adoption of nutrient management planning for all farms, restrictions of manure and fertilizer application to the land, the expansion of winter, otherwise known as cover crops, and stream bank stabilization. If you look at the map figure on the left, and you see the various subwatersheds are colored by different hues of orange, those subwatersheds that are a deeper orange color are estimated to have higher loads of phosphorus and represent a target for nutrient loading within the watershed. Mayor?
On the 90% loading that comes from agriculture, has that number changed in the time that we've been tracking this? Has it increased or decreased?
So that feature of the model, I'm not aware that there's been any changes with regards to that estimate. So it is a model estimate. That's really what we have. It's always been the case that research and monitoring around watershed science is difficult, right? So models are typically used with regards to identifying loads. And so, but that as far as I'm aware, that statistic has remained 90%. Okay, the Owasco Lake Watershed 9-Element Project Coordination Committee was formed, and a recommended practice of the 9-Element Plan was supporting the Management Council's central role in lake and watershed management. So that committee was formed on November 15th based on an approval of the Council's Board of Directors, and the purpose of this committee is to prioritize, coordinate, and facilitate projects and programs implementation based on the recommendations of that 9-Element Plan. So this just gives you a sense. I'm not going to go through all of the partnerships, but partners are huge for us. We're a small organization, and we are resourceful, and we leverage our partnerships as best we possibly can. But all of these organizations have some representation and involvement with that particular committee. So we've been at this for several years. We have a progress report that was completed in 2025. It shows our activities between 2022 through 2025. That report is available through the Keywood County Planning Department's website and also linked on the Management Council's website if you're interested in reviewing the report. I'm just going to do a couple of brief feature examples of projects under the sort of auspices of that committee and the 9-Element Coordination Committee. So that's this is a 2023 stream bank stabilization project that was funded under the Sustain Our Great Lakes program back in 2023. And they awarded us about $500,000 for our Owasco Lake Watershed Critical Streams Restoration Project. This project targets the Owasco Inlet stream bank stabilization sites between Booth Hill Road and Cap Path Road in the town of Locke, and landowners who reside along the targeted reaches have expressed concern about severe stream bank erosion in those areas. And 2026 implementation is planned. So we're underway with planning, and implementation will be ongoing in the near future. If you look at the map on the right there, again, this map I referenced earlier, the town of Locke is positioned in the subwatershed number 3 there at the southern end of the lake, which is a moderately high level priority with regards to nutrient loading to the lake. Okay, let's talk a bit about stream corridor assessments. In the summer of 2023, the committee submitted a variety of proposals based on New York State grant program solicitations. The following was funded. This is funding to the city of Auburn for a non-point, non-ag planning grant for stream corridor assessments. A small grant, but useful, $75,000 was awarded. And in 2025, just this last year, assessments were made for both Sucker and Van Ness Brooks within the prioritized Owasco Lake HUC 12. That is a hydrologic unit code, essentially the subwatershed at the north end of the lake. And since this project, these assessments were made, we've been reviewing the recommendations associated with these assessments and working towards communicating with landowners about their interests and willingness to pursue recommended projects. I just want to touch on the value of ecosystem services and leveraging the value that nature provides, and doing this through land preservation. The Nature Conservancy protected 72 acres of forested wetlands in Venice in 2024. It was transferred to the Management Council last year. This newly protected land is home to a diverse forest. Extensive wetlands on the property function as a natural filter, mitigating runoff from neighboring properties before discharging to Owasco Lake. This is our second nature preserve now that we own and steward. Just briefly, we've made some advancements with our tributary adoption and identification project with some additional installations at the south end of the watershed. This is primarily an awareness-based project. This signage offers the names of the targeted tributaries, as well as provides QR codes so that the public can connect with our website to learn more about the project, as well as information to gain contact with watershed inspectors, in this case with Jesse Lloyd as our lead inspector now, if they observe any issues that they would like to report. Briefly on tracking progress, right? What's the point if we're not tracking progress? Both quantitative and qualitative metrics are being used to track implementation of the recommended actions of the Owasco Lake nine-element plan and the extent to which Owasco Lake supports its best uses for water supply, aquatic habitat, the salmonid fishery, and contact recreation. And the primary metric draws upon the annual monitoring reports for Owasco Lake from what's called the Citizens Statewide Lake Assessment Program, or CSLAP. And prescribed by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, chlorophyll A is considered a response variable. That is, chlorophyll A is present in high concentrations when there are blooms and when there's a high level of eutrophication in the lake. The summer average chlorophyll concentration at or below 4 micrograms per liter, as documented through CSLAP, is considered evidence of successful implementation of the 9-element plan. Secondary metrics include updating the SWAP model with best management practices implemented and the percent increases in those practices advanced within the watershed. And there's an important asterisk there, and the reason that's there is that utilizing the extent of BMPs or practices implemented as a measure of water quality improvement is deterministic and can only explain the planned performance with respect to the model recommendations. BMP metrics cannot replace direct lake and watershed monitoring. So we need to continue to monitor the lake so that we can understand what's going on and how to move forward. So there are a couple other ways that we monitor the lake. The Lake Association, they spearhead a tributary monitoring program. This is funded under the Finger Lakes Lake Ontario Watershed Protection Alliance bucket and Cayuga County. This is where volunteers from AULA with support from Management Council staff conduct sampling and deliver samples to the Upstate Freshwater Institute, which is a certified lab. This is a bi-weekly program, and we have special sampling runs when there are storm events as well. SUNY ESF collaborates to collect tributary flow data and analyze and interpret project data. The Citizen Statewide Lake Assessment Program, as I mentioned earlier, that's important for those metrics that sort of help us identify whether we're performing well with respect to the plan. That is spearheaded by AULA volunteers at one Owasco Lake site per year, and this is partially funded by FLOPA. And then New York State DEC has some monitoring initiatives. Their lake tributary and HABs monitoring data are available online. The buoy's still out there. The robotic monitoring buoy has been deployed and maintained out in the lake for many years now. The Finger Lakes Institute at Hobart William Smith College deploys and operates a robotic water quality monitoring buoy. And the data from the buoy, as well as other water quality data from Owasco Lake, are digitized for public access. The link is provided there. And the buoy is funded by Cayuga County, and the data portal is funded by Cayuga County FLOPA grant funds. Okay, this is the only tabular figure that I'll review. This shows CSLAP data from 2017 through 2024 for primary metrics for tracking performance with regards to the plan. That is the summer average chlorophyll A from 2017 through 2024 and summer average total phosphorus. You can see that those summer averages are fairly consistent over the course of that span of years, if not somewhat decreasing. There's some reduction there for those metrics. But what that also speaks to is that these metrics, in my opinion, are inadequate to really understand why we are continuing to have such active blooms in this lake. Harmful algal blooms continue to manifest. We need to learn more about why they are, and we need to do more with regards to monitoring and understanding the lake. This is the last slide. I'd like to welcome City Council to enjoy a hike on us. This is these figures come from signage at the Council's Fillmore Nature Preserve. This is a property that was transferred to the Management Council in 2023, 161 acres, and includes diverse forests, approximately 40 acres of freshwater wetlands, and we have hiking trails open to the public there. So please do come out and visit us there if you're available and interested. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Effler. Any questions for Dr. Effler? Comments from the council? Councilor Diego?
Just had one question. He already left. We've had the same, what's that? No, it's yeah, Mr. Bishop. He's been here for about the last year and a half, and
Sure.
every meeting he talks about this stable isotope analysis. Can you just speak on that, or do we use it, or is it worth using? He's talked about it for a long time, so it'd be nice just to have an answer so we could tell him when he comes in. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor. I'm familiar with Mr. Jacob. So as I understand it, his contention through the years has been that the wastewater treatment facilities that discharge to the lake are discharging significant levels of nutrients to the lake and harmful pollutants to the lake. So it's important to be aware that those facilities are highly regulated and that they have experienced significant reductions in their loading contribution to the lake in recent years. And really it's been impressive to see the new technologies being implemented there. Based on lake and watershed modeling, those facilities do not discharge the level of contaminants to the lake relative to the watershed discharges, as we understand it, based on estimates from the model, that we would necessarily choose to prioritize our attention there, in my opinion. So the watershed protection, based on what we understand from model estimates, really needs to be a priority for us in terms of reducing nutrient loading, which is the target to reduce harmful algal blooms in the lake.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Dr. Effler, you mentioned the financial buy-in from all the partners around the table, and I think you said it's 100% now?
Yes.
Yeah,
from
that's a huge
directors.
accomplishment from where
Thank
we
you.
started to where we are now, and it's a testament to everybody that's sitting at the table on a monthly basis and collaborating together and working together, understanding that despite maybe our different priorities, being a city or a rural area, that we all have one thing in common, and it's, that lake is a resource that needs to be protected. And it's encouraging to see that there is that buy-in and collaboration, and just kudos to all of you for encouraging that and getting that done.
Thank you, Mayor Giannantino. I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
I also want to recognize the City of Auburn's representative on the Owasco Lake Watershed Management Councilor, former City Councilor Ginny Kent. She's in attendance as well. Ms. Kent, thank you for continuing to serve the interests of the people of Auburn and the watershed as a whole. We appreciate the work that you do. Thank you. Other business from the council? Councilor Clarko?
We spoke briefly last week about data centers, and I have been in touch with Mr. Jensen and the rest of council about that. I'm glad that the governor finally signed that moratorium, and that gives me some ease, but it's something I still would like to be considered. But I was wondering if Mr. Jensen would be willing to come up, because he sent me an email explaining how there's already some protections worked into our waste treatment policy, so I would just like for him to let the community know about that.
Sure. I'm glad I sat through this. I get to get up and talk for a little bit. So yeah, you asked whether or not we could put a moratorium on that type of use, and of course, City Council has the right to do that at any time. Mr. Cuddy, you were really heavily involved with fractionation water. And at that point, the City of Auburn was taking in well water. It wasn't necessarily frack water directly, but we stopped at that point in time and no longer did that. I'll also draw council's attention to the fact that we have an industrial pretreatment program. Tim O'Brien heads that up for the City of Auburn and can speak much more eloquently about that than I can. But what I do know is that means any waste that is brought to the wastewater treatment plant from an industrial user or a hauler has to be permitted by the City of Auburn. And if a user like that or an industry like this were to come, we wouldn't just take it. We would have to run all of their constituents through a pretty rigorous test to ensure the wastewater treatment plant has the capacity, the treatment capacity, to handle that type of waste. My guess is we say no quite often, and my guess, depending on what can be in this type of waste, might be a no already. But if council is interested in locking that down more by just passing a resolution like what was done with frack water and saying no data center water at any time can be accepted by the City of Auburn's wastewater treatment plant, you could do that. I'm interested to see what comes of the further studies that New York State is going to deploy around this during the moratorium to better understand, you know, what constituents there are and what those impacts may be on wastewater treatment plants, because it's also a potential revenue source for the city of Auburn down the line. And if it's something that is safe and is proven through study, that could be a potential revenue source for us as well. So it's your call. We are monitoring, and we do not allow just anybody to come into town and haul waste to the wastewater treatment plant without pretty detailed analysis and permitting. So.
Thank you. I have no appetite for a data center on Owasco Lake. We have enough issues to try to help take care of it, so it is something I would like to move forward with. I don't know how the rest of the council feels, but that's my personal stance.
Councilor Clay?
Yes, I would support Councilor Calarco's initiative in doing that. It would probably make their job easier if the council did have, I mean, at least for the wastewater element of it, to basically have a local law that prohibits them taking in wastewater from those kinds of industries, because you know, sometimes there are permits for, the DEC does issue permits, but you know, I think it's important for us to protect people downstream from us, just like we would hope that people upstream from us consider our drinking water. So, and I also want to note like how good of a job that the Owasco Lake Watershed Management Council is doing to help protect our water, and we also want to make your job easier, and hopefully that people upstream from us consider similar initiatives, so that we're not having to deal with more than what we already are dealing with. So I long story short, I support Councilor Calarco's initiative if the Corporation Council and the manager can, I mean, there's more discussion from the...
Sure. Anyone else on that topic? Councilor Diego?
I support it.
Definitely support the ban on the data centers. I'd like to see what Seth just said as far as bringing the water in. We don't want a data center here by any means, but they're probably going to pop up someplace that doesn't get a moratorium in place. You know, see what the studies say. If it's not harmful and our wastewater treatment plant can handle it with no adverse effects to the drinking water, obviously it'd have to be 100% safe, or it's not even worth it. You know, if it comes back that way, which is probably not gonna, but if it does, you look at it down the road if somebody else wants to bring it in. But as far as putting it right around here on the lake, no, not at all.
I would support further discussion on outright ban on taking the water. You know, I'm reading headlines today. EPA weighs eliminating public comment requirements for a common data center air permit. Newly proposed EPA rule could silence data center critics. It's an all-out assault, right? Like, follow the money. These are multi-billionaires building data centers. Follow the money. It's now the EPA saying, well, we're going to take away local control. So I think we need to do everything we possibly can to protect ourselves. I agree. Like, let's go through the process, but I do support stricter regulations on that for sure. Any other business from the council?
I just have a question to clarify. Are you interested in a regulation around not allowing data centers and not taking water? There are two different sections of our code.
Right.
Do you want to do both?
I would say I would like to do both. I would like to say no data centers in Auburn. I'd also like to talk about battery storage facilities.
Yes.
Also, if we're gonna go down that road, I think those are things we need to talk about. And then also not taking the sewage, because I understand we cannot regulate what gets built on Owasco Lake, so this is our only way to kind of make that reach.
So 3 things. So I support all 3.
Thank you.
Further discussion, you know, obviously what the mayor's saying, but
Well,
definitely moving these things forward.
The other thing that I'll remind you is, made the announcement earlier tonight about the survey that's out there. I mean, that's
Comprehensive plan?
yeah,
Yes,
the
yes.
comprehensive plan. That's, you know, getting people's input on these topics through that survey would be very helpful for future, because what that comprehensive plan is gonna make major advisements for future zoning changes or code changes for the city. And it's a perfect opportunity to hear from the community through that community survey, so please do what you can to spread the word on that community survey.
I have one other item. Mr. Garland, did you receive this from the constituent?
Yes.
So, my understanding, if I'm reading it, is this the same parcel, these 2 pages?
No, that's
No.
a different parcel to a property in the general neighborhood.
All right, so, and I just want to clarify a point, and maybe I should have done it while Mr. Levick was still here. He's referring to the fact that we've denied his request to buy a city right-of-way on Pulsford Drive along the Owasco River. We've maintained repeatedly to him that we've received multiple requests. I can remember at least 4 in my time on council where we've said no. And the reason being, we need to maintain control of those. Oftentimes, there's infrastructure underneath them, and we need that access to the river. So he did bring an example of where the city sold one, but I do want to note that this was in 1995.
Correct.
So it was an extremely long time ago, different leadership, both upstairs and in council chambers. So, you know, the precedent recently, at least over the last 10 years, has been not to sell those. So I just wanted to be on record to clarify that, what was said tonight. So. Any other business from the council? Do we have a request for executive session?
Yes, Mayor, 4 items. 2 items related to pending litigation, 1 related to the sale of real property, and 1 related to collective negotiations.
Do we have a sponsor for executive session? Councilor Clerco, second by Councilor Cuddy. Please call the roll.
Executive session, 6:56 PM. Councilor Diego?
Yes.
Councilor Overstreet Wilson?
Yes.
Councilor Cuddy?
Yes.
Councilor Clarko?
Aye.
Mayor Genatine?
Aye, we'll be in recess for executive session.